Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and I am back for the likes of the MXT Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations while we're still playing through Sonic Generations Remastered version for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally, of course, the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to fully complete every single challenge asked in the Classic era, and all in all though, we actually did those challenges quite well. Even though, except there was a part where the fact that Journey falls within a one ring challenge in a chemical plant level, where I sometimes managed able to get screwed over so many times, alongside with the forms of the high-speed hijinks mission in Sky Sanctuary level. So, apart from those side things though, we did manage able to actually accomplish those missions without any issues whatsoever, despite the drop dash gets in my way sometimes, but I digress. So, today for this video is that we're about to be going and show off the extra stage right here, and also in addition to that we're about to be facing off against with not one but two boss battles. So as a result though, yeah, let's get to it with the forms of the extra stage to start things off with this video. And as a result, remember back in Journey Forms Event 2011 that basically this particular stage was only accessible if you do manage to able to download that specific code, assuming if you do able to actually access to the collector's edition for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3 versions. So basically though, you were able to actually access an extra stage, which appears to be this pinball machine kind of stage right here. Mind you, it did say a whole bunch of question marks, so this actually says on the actual display right here, it actually says Casino Night. And basically, this particular stage is obviously based off from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, for the likes of the 4th stage of that game, by the way. At least to be more specifically, the 16-bit version, which, you know, is for the Mega Drive/Genesis versions, so either way. And so, to begin with, let's go ahead and show off Act 1 right here, as Classic Sonic. Okay, if you couldn't tell right there, this is actually my second attempt for this particular stage, by the way, because I have no idea what's going on the PS4 version for right now, because during my first run-through, I'm thinking about the fact that I'm also able to try to show that off on the shorts segment, where basically though, what happens was though, the game attempts to lag at one point, and as a result, when it keeps on getting laggy and stuff, the game automatically crashes, and as a result though, I essentially got kicked out of my game. And as a result though, I was not expecting that particular issue for right now, especially concerning for the fact that I don't think I actually come across into that issue on the Switch version, alongside with the Xbox versions, by the way. So it might actually be the PS4 exclusive game crash. Well, I may be wrong, but then again though, I'll try to point things out whenever we're able to get around to this point. So anyway, and basically though, for Casino Night level, as you can tell, it's more accurately you playing pinball and nothing else. So you're essentially trying to rank up some more points, and no matter what though, they're just there for the sake of bragging rights. If you do manage to able to get some bit of distractions off the phones this entire stage, I mean, relatively speaking though, remember back in Journey Falls in 2018, right? That technically we've already got the Casino Night DLC for the Xbox 360 version for free, by the way. But unfortunately though, Journey Falls in 2025 and on all that stuff, basically though, that you can no longer get that particular DLC anymore in terms of free download on the Xbox 360. I don't know if it's still possible if you do manage to able to find the replacement download code for the PlayStation 3 version, assuming of course if you do manage to able to try to find the collector's edition for the PlayStation 3 version. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly downloaded that version either. So yeah, no matter what though, that basically though is about the fact that it's just, you know, a pinball level rather than in the actual level, because I already know for the fact that the 3DS version does have the actual level of Casino Night Zone, by the way, from the likes of in a classic era. So, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that it's nice to be able to actually have. Kind of thinking about it though, actually, is about the fact that thanks to the forms of the remastered version of Sonic Generations nowadays, is that you can now able to actually access to Casino Night level right from the start this time. And also, as you can see on screen, that classic Sonic looks a lot different on screen, but that is mainly because, similar to the forms of how it does it on past Sonic games, like for example, with Sonic Frontiers, alongside with the forms of Sonic Superstars, basically that was about the fact that yes, much like those two games, every once in a while back then, before the actual game releases, basically though, there's this particular newsletter subscription that if you do manage to able to actually access that particular subscription, this way you can able to actually access to one of those specific character skins. So, however though, it's only for a limited time, unfortunately though, so expecting to believe about the fact that it's already too late now, in regards to the forms of trying to able to get yourselves the forms of this particular classic Sonic skin. And for that particular skin, by the way, is obviously based off from Sonic Jam, which basically, for those of you who've never heard about the forms of Sonic Jam before, basically though, that game is basically a compilation game that's only exclusive to the Sega Saturn, which does contain not only 4 classic Sonic games, 3 additional ones thanks to the forms of the lock-on technology with Sonic and Knuckles, so that basically counts as 7 games in one. And there's also with the forms of this 3D Sonic World mode, where basically though you can able to run around, and on top of all that stuff though, there's also some mission objectives you can able to do, as well as that though, you can able to check out some cool extras. So for instance though, there's the Japanese commercials for certain Sonic games, including the actual advertisement for the forms of the trailer for the likes of Sonic OVA. So as a result though, it's about the fact that that's as far as I can try to explain about that. So, but I digress. So, and as far as I'm aware though, it's about the fact that I technically already did manage to able to change that particular skin in just about a couple of days ago, by the way, though I suppose I totally forgot to mention about that ever since on Friday, because, well, straight to the point though, for those of you probably wondering about the fact that yes, this particular part is going to be quite short, mainly because as far as I'm aware though, I just can't even believe that at one point I was doing quite well in terms of ranking up more points in Casino Night level, but I'm not very great at pinball to begin with, although I did manage to do well enough until my game decides to able to chuck at one point, and then once it chucks long enough, like I said before, my game crashed, and as a result I have to restart the entire process all over again. And not just that, however though, I lost my good run score in terms of this entire stage. So yeah, it definitely needs some bit of fixes here and there. I won't admit it though right away, because it can be unstable at times. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact I will try to point things out as soon as I'm able to actually open up the shorts video, at least as far as I'm concerned with that point, but still, it can be rather a nuisance at times. So, and yes, as to be expected, it's about the fact that you can able to actually claim yourself some tokens, and what you can do with these tokens, by the way, is that you can able to actually access the slot machine, which, let me tell you, for my run right here, it is virtually impossible to reach sometimes, I must admit though right away, not only because it was ridiculously fast at one point, but as well as that though, it's probably because those flippers, well, they are fine to control, but it's just about the fact that, like I said before, I'm pretty much, well, kind of thinking about it though, I'm not exactly a pinball kind of player, although I used to back in the day, thanks to this built-in pinball game you were able to actually play on certain computers back then, but not anymore though. Well, the reason why I've somehow managed able to become familiar with those pinball machines again is because of the forms of familiar franchises I always into. Likely, for instance, though, is about the fact that I still managed to get myself Super Mario Ball for the Game Boy Advance, and Sonic Spinball, Sonic Pinball Party for the Game Boy Advance, and there's also Kirby Pinball Land for the Game Boy, and even especially noticeable with the forms of Metroid Prime Pinball for the Nintendo DS. And speaking of which though, I also do somehow realize about the fact that Metroid Prime Pinball is expected to able to eventually gonna be 20 years old this year, which, again, that particular topic can't wait though, assuming, of course, if we're able to actually decide to tackle through more challenge acts in the future. To be more specifically though, once we make our way to the next era, which, sure enough though, it will be the Dreamcast era, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's all there is to really think about it. In terms of Casino Night level, even though I will admit though right away, that run is actually quite rough to me though, and I personally blame on that particular unexpected game crash off screen, by the way. So generally speaking, I was about the fact I was a little bit, disappointed with that particular run. I'll admit it though right away, but I digress. So now we've basically shown that, and now let's go ahead and tackle through one of the boss fights, starting with Metal Sonic. First appeared in Sonic the Hedgehog CD, and it's also worth noting for too is about the fact that, well, as you can see, every time whenever you participate in a boss battle, basically though we can able to claim one of the Chaos Emeralds, which appears to be the purple Chaos Emerald, for instance. And yeah, it's going to take place in that familiar location, which appears to be inspired by Stardust Speedway, specifically the Bad Future version of Stardust Speedway, because it seems pretty obvious about the fact that the background music you're going to be hearing is obviously based off from the Japanese version or the European version of that familiar music of Stardust Speedway Bad Future, because unlike in Sonic CD, we have to race against with him. And as far as I'm aware, this time around though in Sonic Generations, you can now able to actually fight against him. And, well, suffice to say though, this boss is pretty easy if you pretty much know exactly what to do. And as far as I'm aware, we only come across into Metal Sonic for the sake of the classic version of Metal Sonic, because as far as I'm aware, we never come across into modern version of Metal Sonic until specifically once we make our way to the second game of this entire package, by the way. Well, mind you, we're not going to spoil things too much just yet though, just because obviously though it's about the fact that we're still on the classic era so far in terms of Sonic Generations, portion of Sonic X Shadow Generations. So, anyways though, few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 6th of January today, in some cases in 2025 today, and you probably already realized about the fact that during the events have been the past few days, or to be more accurate though, it's been 2 days ago since that Blaze the Cat, that she's now tackling through the next Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games kind of games, and this time she's now onto the DS version of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games. And as far as I'm aware, I don't really think we can probably tackle for the 3DS versions of Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, or the Rio 2016 for that matter, just because I do realize about the fact that the recording setup is going to be a nightmare with those two games in particular, just because of gyro sensing controls when it comes to several of these events, including occasional touchscreen controls, and not to mention though, during the forms of towards the end game of the 3DS version of London 2012 is a bit of a pain to complete, especially concerning for the fact that, well, yeah, I don't think I can able to discuss on that right now. So anyway, so now we pretty much does it for Metal Sonic. So every time when you deal with a boss fight, like I said before, we somehow claimed the first Chaos Emerald, which is the purple color. And also not to mention though, we got ourselves the achievement / trophy, so everything else will become to expect. So anyway, let's go ahead and face off against with the main boss in a classic era. But first, cutscene.
Take a good look at yourself, Sonic.
Dr. Eggman!
It's the last thing you'll see in this world.
Another Sonic? What? Wait a second!
Now, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to cutscenes and dialogue and all that stuff, despite the fact that it plays out exactly like the forms of how it does in the original version, but there's one criticism I have with this though, in regards to the forms of, the dialogue in this version of the game, is that, well, the voice acting sounds a little bit worse than the forms of how it does in the originals to me though, just because why does the actual scenes have to be re-recorded for any other dialogue for that matter, which is especially noticeable once we make our way towards the end of this, so, but then again, no, I'm probably not going to get into further details from now on, because here we go with the main boss in a classic era. That's what it appears to be, the Death Egg Robot, based off from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, as part of the final boss in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And usually, relatively speaking, this time around though, this boss fight is a lot easier than the forms of how it does it back in Sonic 2. For one, you do have rings to start things off, and second of all is about the fact that this boss battle is broken up to two phases. Like, the first phase is pretty much standard fare, and we're now on to the second phase of the fight right away, and as a result we have to activate the switch, and we have to make sure we need to let this arm thing decide it's able to attack its bomb. Now once you've done so, hop onto its arm and attack its head, and you do it for a grand total of 2 times, and that's all you have to do for this point. So relatively an easy fight, especially concerning for the fact that, this is still the beginning progression so far, in terms of Sonic Generations portion after all. And I do remember that, kind of thinking about it, that both Mario and Blossom are both really darn close to able to actually achieve the S rank on this boss fight. I'm guessing it's probably because no matter what though, they keep on making mistakes with like leaps of faith, and on top of all that stuff though, if you reach for about 2 minutes, then it's no longer possible for you to get the S rank. So there we go, the Death Egg Robot has been defeated, and would you look at that, I've now claimed my glorious S rank, so how about that? And I believe that pretty much does it for the classic era, at least for now.
What? No! No! Sonic, save me! No!
Well then, it looks like Classic Robotnik has now been visible this time, as opposed to the original, that he clearly doesn't show up.
Huh. Couldn't have done it better myself.
This confirms it. It sure does. Older versions of us. Places and enemies from our past. We're traveling through time, Sonic!
Without the time stones?
It's like that big thing that kidnapped Eggman can consume time. And then it looks like it dragged your friends here. I mean, our friends. You know what I mean. There it is! Where'd it go?
We need to track it down, and fast.
And so, we're about to be moving on to the next era, which, like I said before, we now ended up in the Dreamcast era. Or to be more accurate though, the Green Ice era, because that is when that particular era, like Sonic Adventure, somehow introduces its completely different design of Sonic, which obviously he does have green eyes and all that stuff, so it makes sense to able to actually call it that, but I digress. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings up this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations, while we're still playing through the remastered version of Sonic Generations, is that we're about to begin the Dreamcast era, starting with the level based off from Sonic Adventure, all the way up to Sonic Heroes for that particular era. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow.